Let's move on.
Let's talk about Mid-Atlantic.
There was no rape on the show.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure there was no rape on the show.
I was trying to think of something that I could say was like being raped, but there was nothing on this show. Except maybe having to watch number one Paul Jones against a jobber.
Number one Paul Jones was all over the show.
Yeah.
You know, I got into wrestling in like early 87, maybe a little late 86. At this time, Paul Jones was a manager for, I guess technically it'd be Jim Crockett Promotions. I just called it the NWA at the time. And he was managing Ivan Koloff and the Barbarian. The bottom level feuds they were having. And I remember thinking...
What a crew.
I remember thinking at age 11, 12, that guy sucks.
The Barbarian and who?
Ivan Koloff.
Ivan Koloff?
Mm-hmm.
I was going to make fun of that stable, but when I think about Vicky Guerrero with Dolph Ziggler and Jack Swagger, nowadays I don't know who's doing worse.
I don't either. Actually, Ivan Koloff and Dolph Ziggler and Jack Swagger, former world champions.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the record. Anyway, at age 11 or 12, I knew Paul Jones sucked. And then I kept watching wrestling. I started watching more old stuff, and Paul Jones' name would keep popping up over just decades of time, it seemed. He was never any good. Saw him manage, saw him announce, saw him wrestle. He wasn't good at any of these things. Wasn't horrible. Like, if I know people are going to listen to this, they're going to look at a Paul Jones match, and it's going to be a half-star affair, and they'll think, I don't know, he's better than guys on Raw right now, but...
That's not high praise, everybody.
No. Standards used to be higher. And I've never figured it out why Paul Jones had such a long career. Then we watched this show from 82, which was a great show. And like I say, Paul Jones was all over it, doing things badly. I don't get it.
Paul Jones did, in fact, win the worst manager of the year in the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards in 1986, actually.
Oh, there you go. So,
neither Jack Swagger or Dolph Ziggler ever beat Bruno Sammartino.
That's true.
So I think Paul Jones may have a better stable, in my opinion.
So the show opened. Bob Caudle ran down the card, including an appearance by, and this is a quote, Sergeant Bob Slaughter.
Yes. Sergeant Bob Slaughter.
Sadly, I don't think he ever called him that again. So then Ric Flair came out. I can't describe this. Ric Flair cut a fucking awesome promo.
Yeah.
Talked about how he beat Wahoo McDaniel. And so Jim Crockett, he made Jim Crockett sound like the guy who Donald Trump goes to when he's out of money. He made him sound like a guy who lives in a solid gold palace. But this rich, wealthy man went to the NWA with all his money and tried to bribe them so that he would have to come back for a match. And he said they took Flair's side, but then he had to come back and wrestle Wahoo again. And if he had to wrestle Wahoo again, he was going to hurt him real bad. He was unbelievable here.
He was quite great.
He was phenomenal. So he finishes up his promo, and Bob Caudle starts to throw it to commercial. And last thing you hear off mic is Ric Flair say, "What is this?" So they come back from commercial, and Flair has not yet gotten into the ring. He is upset because he is supposed to wrestle that. And they get to the ring, and there's a black man standing there. And Ric Flair says, "Where I come from, we don't wrestle people like that. We employ them."
That's what he said. 1982.
Yeah. So he demands a different opponent as he is ranting and raving and dehumanizing this man. Wahoo McDaniel comes out. He is restrained, but Flair bails. He's distracted. He's clearly afraid of Wahoo. And eventually Wahoo is corralled, and they take him to the back. And so Bob Caudle says, "All right, Rick, you're wrestling a new opponent. We have a new opponent for you." And Ric Flair turns around, and there's Jack goddamn Briscoe in the ring.
No, it's Ric Flair who turned to Bob Caudle and said, "I'll wrestle that guy in the ring."
I see.
And the guy in the ring was Jack Briscoe at that point.
So, by the way, we were told the black man who Ric Flair did not want to wrestle because he was racist, that man's name was Leroy Darkin.
That was his name.
Not making this up. 1982 in the South. So, yes, we had Jack Briscoe wrestling Ric Flair. You want to take over here?
Good, you're doing fine. I enjoyed this battle.
They wrestled.
They had a wrestling match.
Exchanged holds.
I will say this. When I heard it's going to be Ric Flair versus Jack Briscoe, I salivated, but it really wasn't all that great.
It felt like the first 5 minutes of a great 1 hour match.
Yeah, they exchanged a bunch of holds. They obviously called it in the ring.
Yeah.
You know, Jack Briscoe, I mean, this was 1982. Mm-hmm. So I think he retired like 3 or 4 years later, or something like that. I forget exactly when he retired. But the point was, there's nothing wrong with it. But when you think of great Ric Flair matches and great Jack Briscoe matches, and you think of the two of them together, you did not get a great match.
No.
It was fine. And the highlight of this was it Paul Jones that said he'd never seen this move before?
This was the first time number one Paul Jones appeared on the show. He came out as okay, and I know we just said it was not the best thing of all time, but still, Ric Flair, the world champion, is in the ring against Jack Briscoe, a former world champion, and Paul Jones comes out to say he said he was there to add something to the broadcast.
That's what he said.
He failed. Yeah. He had nothing. So yes, they're wrestling around, and Jack Briscoe pins Ric Flair with a backslide.
A backslide.
And Paul Jones said he had never seen this move before.
A backslide.
Yes.
Now, quite frankly, Paul Jones may never have seen a backslide before, based on his match later.
So, yes, Briscoe won. Flair attacked him after the bell. Wahoo ran out to make the save, and that was that. Then we had a match that, I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed this match more than Jack Briscoe versus Ric Flair.
It was certainly...
livelier.
It was livelier. It was only
sillier.
About 10 seconds.
It was... It was Roddy Piper and Jimmy Valiant.
Why don't we watch Mid-South or Mid-Atlantic every week to see Jimmy Valiant? I guarantee he's wrestling on the show almost every week.
Roddy Piper and Jimmy Valiant as a tag team against two men who were not announced until much later. Roddy Piper was insane and out of his goddamn mind. Jimmy Valiant was always insane and out of his goddamn mind. He could not wrestle without skipping at the same time.
And dancing.
Dancing, shucking, jiving.
He was boogie-woogieing, Vinny.
He was boogieing and woogieing, yes.
Yes.
Just an amazing display here. So Piper and Valiant meet them in about a minute with a sleeper, at which point the two men went to the announce desk to cut a promo. Now, when I say the two men, you hear this description, you hear these names, and you think, well, Roddy Piper and Jimmy Valiant went over to cut a promo. No. The jobbers, who just got squashed in a minute, in fact, one of them never even got in the ring, Ken Timms and Jim Dalton went to the announce desk to cut a promo. God damn, this was a great promo.
They did a better promo than anyone on Raw.
In years!
I don't know what they said.
Oh, it was amazing.
They were very mad.
They were upset that Roddy Piper was a turncoat. We gathered over the course of the show that Roddy Piper had recently turned face.
Sure.
So they called Roddy Piper a turncoat and a coward. They threatened to get him in... actually, they said Piper may get them in a parking lot or an apartment because he was a sneak.
A sneak?
That's what they called him, sneaks.
Sneak.
They were upset about what they had done to Piper's nose. Jim Dalton was calling out Roddy Piper to, I guess, I don't know, maybe they would do the circuit together. But, yeah, it was awesome. I would pay money to watch Ken Timms and Jim Dalton cut promos on people.
Yeah. If you've seen, if you saw Memphis Heat, Jimmy Valiant's a very, very skinny man. I have no idea how he kept up weight back then. How did he keep all that weight on?
He was moving all the time.
He would be dancing as he sold.
Yes.
He would be dancing as the heat was being put on him.
Writhing in pain.
Writhing in pain
but boogieing.
In a boogieing manner.
He never lost the boogie.
Jimmy Valiant is my favorite wrestler of all time.
Hard to argue. Hard to argue. You know who's not my favorite wrestler?
Tell me, Vinny.
Number 1, Paul Jones.
You mean number 10, Paul Jones?
10,000. He had a match with a jobber. It went like 2 minutes, and for the most part, it was just boring. You know, this may have gone like 4, now that I'm thinking about it. It went longer than it needed to. So they had a boring match, and then Jones goes to put the jobber away, and he hooks him in the manner you would use to deliver a suplex, and then he lifts the man up, and he does what I think was supposed to be a brainbuster.
I think it was supposed to be a suplex, and he screwed it up.
I don't know. It looked bad. It looked
He brain-busted him.
It looked like a move that was done poorly and was dangerous and painful. The worst combination of pro wrestling.
Yes.
And then he pinned him with it. Cottle called it a suplex. That's all I got to say about this. Had a Roddy Piper promo. He was on. I'll say. He was on. He explained that he was still the same guy. He still pulled women's hair. But when Oliver Humperdinck had offered him a chance to join his stable and he said, I will make you a star, Roddy Piper, he didn't need him. He was already a star. He was his own man. He had no friends and he liked it that way. And then he headbutted the wall several times.
Yeah.
So we had the semi-main event. Sergeant Bob Slaughter versus Jake Roberts.
Oh, boy.
Jake Roberts here was, he did look, as you noted, like every 70s porn star ever.
I'm positive he was John Holmes.
Yes, he looks exactly like John Holmes. He was, in fact, he had the best physique here I ever saw him have. So...
That's not saying much.
Well, no. No, it's not. But still. So, they had this match, and it was fine.
Actually had a pretty damn good physique in the 80s in WWE. He was all jacked up.
So they're having this match. Maybe it's because I saw him have a feud with Rick Rude, who he did not compare to.
Listen, I've told this story before. When I was a kid, I got WWF magazine, and I always thought it was funny later when steroids started hitting the mainstream with baseball, and people are always like, "Oh, this steroid thing, it set such a bad example for the youth," you know. And when I was growing up watching WWF, everybody was on steroids. But the key is I was a youth, so I didn't know that. I just thought if you lifted a lot of weights and ate food, you'd look like the Ultimate Warrior.
Exactly.
So I started working out when I was a kid. Ultimate Warrior being on the juice, that didn't turn me onto the juice. I didn't know what the hell was going on. But anyway, point of this is, as a little kid, I was watching WWF when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old, and so you see all these huge dudes in the 80s. There's the Warlord, and there's, as noted, Rick Rude, who actually, by the standards of the time, was not I mean, he was ripped, but he wasn't like a big jacked up guy like Warrior, for example. And there's Warrior and Hogan and all these just giant monsters. And Jake Roberts, I mean, you look at Jake Roberts today through modern eyes, with a realization of the fact that Warrior and guys like that were cartoons, and it's pretty clear that Jake was all gassed up in the 80s. But to my eyes, when I was a little kid, I got a WWF magazine one day, and one of the features was Jake Roberts takes us through his weight training workout, and I was like, give me a fucking break. Jake Roberts lifts weights.
Yeah, I
thought this was preposterous. I thought, if this fucking guy lifted weights, he'd look like the Ultimate Warrior. Obviously, this guy doesn't lift weights. That's how skewed my brain was at the time. I was like, if you lift weights, you're going to look like Hulk Hogan. So clearly, Jake Roberts has never lifted a weight in his life. Meanwhile, I believe during that period, it came out that, in fact, he did lift weights and did a lot of other stuff as well, as did everybody in that era. But point was, he had a pretty damn good physique there in the 80s.
So in this match here, Jake Roberts versus Sergeant Slaughter, the announcers are talking about Jake Roberts' knee lift as a devastating finisher. Clearly, he had not yet invented the DDT. So they're talking about his knee lift, and they're doing this match, and Jake, out of nowhere, kind of gets a glancing knee lift. He hits this move, and Slaughter takes a big bump, but he's still rolling around. He's clearly not down for the count yet, and so Jake retreats to the corner. He's hopping back and forth. He's slapping his knee. He's going to knee lift the shit out of this man, and he charges, and Sarge clotheslines him and pins him. Awesome. Great finish.
Especially since he killed him with that DDT. Or that clothesline.
Yes. I was wondering what you're talking about.
Yes.
Sir Oliver Humperdinck and Gene Anderson cut a promo. They were friends of Sarge. Sarge was feuding with Wahoo McDaniel. He was stolen his feathers. So they said they were friends of Sarge, good friends of Sarge. They wanted to help him out, and also they were going to show him how to handle an Indian. So we got Wahoo McDaniel versus Gene Anderson in the main event. They're doing this match. Think about watching this in 2011. Wahoo McDaniel's running the ropes. Sir Oliver Humperdinck from the outside tries to sneakily trip him. He casually reaches over with one hand and he grabs Wahoo's foot and Wahoo stumbles. But Oliver wasn't sneaky enough. And the ref spotted him. And he pointed at Oliver Humperdinck and he called for the bell.
That's right.
You cheated, motherfucker. This shit's over.
Yep.
You broke the goddamn rules. Match over, and you fucking lose.
That's what happened.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Because, you see, there were rules then.
Yeah.
They had to be followed.
You know what's funny? When you walked in here, you asked, where'd you get that book?
This book right here.
Mm-hmm.
Should I read the title?
Tell everybody what that book is.
This book is The Science of Wrestling and the Art of Jiu-Jitsu by Earl Lederman.
1923.
I was going to ask. Yes, it's a very... Clearly, it's well taken care of.
It's an amazing shape.
But it's an amazing shape and an intricate hardcover book.
Mm-hmm. And you know how much I got that book for?
I believe you said $2.50.
Why don't you carefully open up that book right there?
I'm afraid to, honestly.
Very carefully open up that book and start leafing through the first dozen or so pages and tell me what you see. Tell everybody what you see.
Well, a lot of words right now. Holy, holds. A long list of holds.
All right. Keep going.
Should I keep going?
You're at the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
This is before the pictures?
Okay, there's the pictures.
All right, keep going a little bit.
Go past the pictures, or?
No, it's before the pictures.
Before
the very
pictures.
beginning of the book.
Official wrestling rules of the Amateur Athletic Union.
That's right.
Catch as catch can.
There is, in fact, in that book, the rules of professional wrestling in 1923.
Section 11. The referee shall have full control of the competition, and his decision shall be final.
Yes.
And without appeal.
Yes.
Section 12. No bandages of any kind shall be used on hands, arms, or head.
Mm-hmm. That is the wrestling, for those of you that always heard when you were a kid, throw the rule book out the window, the supposed wrestling rule book. I have a legit, honest-to-God wrestling rule book from the 1920s here that has the original rules of professional wrestling. It's amazing.
Section 2. Competitors must wrestle in regulation trunks and may wear light slippers or rubbers without heels.
That means no fucking jorts!
Section 14. In the event of any question arising, not provided for in these rules, the referee, capital R by the way, like God, the referee shall have full power to decide such question and also interpret these rules.
Yes.
That's awesome.
This is back when the rules were the fucking rules. This was great.
That was fucking great. So the show ended. Humperdinck and his crew retreated to the announce desk. They all cut promos. Oliver Humperdinck was there. Ivan Koloff, Speak of the Devil, was there. Gene Anderson was there. And last man was Leroy Brown, who I don't know if I've ever seen before.
I need to see more Leroy Brown.
Leroy Brown was a giant black man with a white beard. And
kind of hell of a promo.
And this is like what you said, I forget what you said this about now. On the show, you said it was a great promo. I have no idea what he said. Oh, it's Ken Timms and Jim Dalton.
Yeah.
I have no idea what Leroy Brown said, but it was great.
Yeah. This was a great show, everybody. It's up on WWE Classics right now. It's Mid-Atlantic from August 18th, 1982. I was 7 when this show took place. And goddamn, was I born too late. But thankfully I wasn't born too late.